Imagine finding 80 of your lost lives. This is Robert Manni, host of Guys TV, and this week my special guest is Michael Goddard. He's written a book about finding his lost lives. He's also got a new one called A New Now, helping you master living today. It all starts right here, right now on Guys TV. You can also catch me on Guys Radio, my worldwide podcast, and on KCAA Radio right here in sunny Southern California. Guys TV, Guys Radio, thanks for your support. Okay, Guys Radio, we're at the interview portion of our show. I've got a very special guest. His name is Michael Goddard. Let me tell you a little bit about him. He's a special man. He's an author of 4 award-winning books, including In Search of Lost Lives, which is about past lives, regression. I think you'll really enjoy that one. Bliss, Spiritual Revolution, and now he's got a new book we're going to talk about today called A New Now, Your Guide to Mastering Wisdom Daily, Achieving Equilibrium, and Empowering Your Nobler Self. And it gives readers an invaluable guide to awakening and empowering their higher consciousness so they can navigate life successfully, happily, easily, and discover how to live their new now. A little bit about Michael. He started searching for the truth about death and how to attain mortality when he was only 10 years old. We'll get into that. He's meditated for over 2 hours a day for many years, and after 3 decades, developed his sense of knowing and accessing his higher consciousness. 2013, he began recovering exact details about 88 of his past lives, which he recounted in the book I mentioned earlier, In Search of Lost Lives. Wow, that's pretty amazing. So let's welcome Michael Goddard to Guys Radio right now. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, Robert. I really appreciate your great introduction.
Well, thanks. Well, you've done wonderful things. So let's start right at the beginning. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, what inspired you to seek a spiritual path, and who were your teachers, if any?
Yeah, well, you gave some of the information. I grew up in Park Forest, initially in Illinois, which was America's first perfectly planned community, a sociologist's playground, it was known as. And we moved to Marin County when I was 10. And basically that changed my life. Just out of the blue, I started trying to contact spirits, doing automatic writing, doing hypnosis, self-hypnosis. And then right after my 11th birthday, I actually encountered death. I began to confront it. I was familiar with death because I'd raised tropical fish since I was 5 years old. And I realized that the most important thing for me this lifetime was to find the answer to life and death. And I would devote my life to that search. So at the age of 11, I let go of my parents' religion. Actually, they weren't very religious at all. And I began to search I wanted to attain an existence of permanent bliss. That sounds really audacious, but I thought it was possible. And the reason why I started searching at such a young age, you can understand if you read In Search of Lost Lives, because actually I come into this lifetime all primed to search. I was searching very consciously my last 3 prior lives, and that becomes very clear. In fact, you can see my whole progression of spiritual evolution as you go through those lives. So I was searching all through high school. I started one kind of meditation, meditating 2 to 5 times a day when I was 19. And then I had my junior year abroad. I was going to Cal Berkeley, and I came back from England, and I found the path. I found a book about it. So I was initiated onto this new spiritual path when I was 21. It's a path of Bhakti and Shabbat yoga. Bhakti is basically a Sanskrit word for devotion. And Shabbat is sort of the best kept secret of the world. It's been known by many names throughout time. It's also word, it's the word of the Bible, it's logos. It is the creative power, the source. So in this initiation, I was, let's say, attuned to the Shabbat within me. We all have it. We can all hear it if we are concentrated enough and focused enough. And that's what I've been meditating at least 2.5 hours a day since then. And it gives me great peace, bliss, and just I cannot express how grateful I am that I'm on this path now, this lifetime, knowing what I suffered in various past lives.
Okay.
Because I'll just finish up because certain past lives I really goofed up and didn't come back as a human. I came back as an animal.
Okay. You
So
mentioned Shabbat. What exactly is that again? How do you spell that for our listeners?
yeah, Shabbat is spelled Shabd, Shabbat. It's also typically called in English the sound current. It's basically actually sound and light. Each human really has, in addition to your physical senses, we have spiritual senses of hearing and seeing. In Sanskrit, that's uh, Nirat and Surat. Nirat is the soul's power to see within in subtler states of being. And Surat is the sense for hearing, the spiritual sense.
Okay. How did you learn how to meditate and do self-hypnosis?
Well, self-hypnosis, I started when I was 10 years old, and I just, my mom was a very well-regarded artist, and we would go to galleries in San Francisco, and after a while, I'd ask if I could get away, and there was a metaphysical bookshop just a few doors down. Sutter Street was filled with galleries at that time. So I just picked up a book and read it, and it came very naturally to me. Um, and then I just knew meditation was the answer. When I read Edgar Cayce for the first time, Robert, when I was 12, the first time I came across the word reincarnation, it was like, wow, lights went off. I knew that it was true. I just accepted it as patently true. So
Okay.
yeah, everybody has their own path, their own timing.
I got you. I'm
Yeah.
just curious as to, and for our listeners, how you were, because some people are self-taught, some people found it more easier than others to tap into the kind of universal energy. And when you mentioned something about sound, some of the things I've been reading and have learned through studying with some folks is that, the whole universe is based on one sound, a chord, like a chord, you could be a, and then the word chord or a chord, and
Mhm.
it's a sound. And the closest we can get to it would be, I guess, kind of ohm, but that we're all making our own sounds and it's all different. Everybody has an individual note within that. But overall, it's just all about this one overarching chord and sound. Is that true in your estimation?
Well, yes, it's very true to an extent. I mean, if you think about a stream starting like in the high Sierras and coming down through all kinds of different landscape, the sound of the stream differs at different places. It'll be very different if it's a waterfall, if there are a lot of huge boulders it's passing through, or just smooth pebbles. So by the time it gets to the ocean, this river, it's had many sounds. So the sound emanates from the core of what you could call the supreme being. It's the nameless power, which a lot of people in the West may call God, or other people call Allah. So it emanates. That is like the creative power of creation. And as you go, what another thing that a lot of people don't realize is that within them they can access higher spiritual regions that vibrate at higher frequencies. They're more subtle. They have less material composition, more mental, and more spiritual. And as you go through each region, the sound differs. And when I already knew this information, but when I was initiated, we were told the main sights and lights and sounds of each of the major regions. Now, saints have divided the regions in many ways. Some have said, there's everything above mind, which is all spirit or soul, and everything below mind. But most saints really differentiate between five inner regions.
Okay.
And the sound, the Shabbat, is different in each one.
Got it. Let's talk about your book a little bit because I don't want to lose out on that.
Sure.
It's called The New Now: Your Guide to Mastering Wisdom, Daily Achieving Equilibrium, and Empowering Your Nobler Self. My special guest, Michael Goddard. Tell us a little bit about this book. I went through it, and there's a lot of different tools about working with your intuition and daily practices, and really a lot of different protocols and modalities to living your best life, aggregated together and set down in a very easy to digest path. What was your goal in writing the book? Tell us a little bit about the book.
Yeah, thank you, Robert. You recapped it very well. Well, I was writing a lot of articles and interviews, Q&As for In Search of Lost Lives, and I was really missing writing something new. So I just started taking notes. It all basically came from my intuition. And when I got the working title and the working subtitle, I just thought, no, there's no way I can write it. It's too audacious and too daunting. But I took a trip to Florida and took a look at a few of my notes to see if there was a book there. And yes, there was. So I started to write that. And after I decided, or it became known to me that there was a book and I was meant to write it, I was having dinner in a vegetarian restaurant. And there was this really sweet couple across from me taking pictures every second of what they were doing and posting it on social media.
Sure.
And they were like 20 years old, and it just hit me. You know, if these were my twin son and daughter, this is the book I would want to leave them if I were dying of cancer in my 40s. So basically this is the manual for learning how to live the best life you can live. It's making best use of your life. So many people take life for granted, and this basically covers all the bases and helps you navigate from moment to moment, day to day, year to year, throughout your lifetime.
Got it.
So you have all the tools you'll need to go further and progress on your spiritual path, whatever it is.
Okay, let's get into a couple of those tips, because I think that's great stuff for our listeners. So one, you talk about journaling, and I've been taught in my own spiritual unfoldment classes, like write it down, write it down, write it down. And I even keep a notebook next to my bed. And when I have a prolific dream, if I stay in place after I wake up and then, revisit it and then grab my pad and write it down, I might have what seems like I'm writing in the dark 5 pages of gobbledygook, but then I know that by writing it down, it's changed the experience, and I also get something more out of it. And I've felt that writing things down just takes your intentions, and if you're asking questions of your higher self, whatever, it takes things to the next level in terms of being effective. Tell us a little bit about the importance of journaling and what you've gotten out of it.
Right. Well, what I describe in the first chapter is what I call the journey journal, although readers can call it anything they want. And it can be downloaded from my website, Goddard.com, which is spelled G-O-D for God and D-A-R-T, T for Tom, or Dart, Goddard.com. And in the book, I describe how to use it. So basically the idea is, how many practical and inspiring books have we read? And maybe we remember 1 or 2 or 3 things, and after 2 weeks, they're gone. So this is the whole means for capturing your experience and furthering it. You can use it any way you want, and it's actually a Word document that you can download. So if you make entries and date them, you can go back and see what you were feeling, what you were thinking, what your goals were, what your intentions were. It's a way of not being totally distracted by all the myriad distractions during the day, so you can focus on discovering your best life here and now.
Okay. Intuition. A lot of people, they want things and they meditate, and they have trouble, I think, one, receiving, because they get blocked, and then 2, there's a difference between receiving and allowing. And I think sometimes some of them get to that first level, but they may not get to that allowing. And part of that is with your intuition. A lot of people, they'll ask a question and they think it's just themselves talking to themselves, because I find that the spirit or the universe, when they're giving you an uplifting message, it's not BS. It's not yourself, goofing on yourself. It's really coming through. And after a while, if you just let that happen, then it becomes more and more helpful, and the answers come faster and are more clear once you get your mind out of the way and stop doubting yourself. That's how I find it a helpful tip to dialing up my intuition. Tell us about intuition from your expertise, Michael.
Yeah, well, that was very helpful, Robert. And intuition is discussed throughout the book, and it's
Right.
what I call one of the five sources of wisdom. And in that chapter, I differentiate between four types of wisdom. And intuition, I mean, often it comes unbidden, and it's something you really need to pay attention to and grasp onto and feel it and know what it says. But it's also something you can develop. And I started to develop my intuition in addition to meditation, uh, starting in my 20s. And then I focused on it a lot more in my 40s. And then in my 60s, actually, I was forced to intuit constantly because I almost died. My intestine literally died, and I had a third of it removed. And I was getting total and partial bowel obstructions constantly. So I had to intuit literally every spoonful of food I would eat, so it would not trigger a bowel obstruction. I'd have to go to the ER. And it was almost, I had to resist from turning this book into a book on how to develop your intuition. But there are many sources out there. And that is basically our higher knowing. In the book, I write about higher mind, better mind, nobler mind. And basically, I write about our three minds. There's our higher mind, what I call our habitual mind, and our lower mind. And what the book is aiming toward is developing your higher mind so you can grasp intuition when it comes, you can accept inspiration when it comes unbidden, and also so you can develop your intuition and not be hijacked by all the differing demands, mental and otherwise.
Got it. Okay, let me ask you about your grooming. On page 27 of your book, you talk about the wisdom of grooming. You get into 33 different wisdoms. So, of course, we don't have time to get into all of them, but I thought this one was important. So you say you have basically four choices. Pursue your worldly desires and goals without regard to your coming fates. Two, decide what you wish to achieve for the remainder of this life, but also the next, and work toward that end. Three, decide you wish to do everything in your power so that after you die, you're rewarded with a stay in heaven. Or four, decide you wish to leave physical existence for good, to transcend all suffering and realize increasingly in spiritual states of soul liberation, bliss, knowing, and supreme love. Are you saying that you get rewarded with heaven? Is there judgment then when you pass through or transition?
Well, first of all, I'm really glad you read that, because that is definitely one of the key parts of the book.
Mhm.
One of the loving wisdoms. Well, basically, I mean, I hate to use this word, but I will. Basically, everything is karma. We have karmic debts, good ones and bad ones that we've developed from prior lives. So some individuals, minds and souls, are rewarded with a stay in heaven for selfless service, for instance. And they can stay there for a seeming eternity. I mean, the level of existence and bliss and joy, it's like a million times, depending on the heaven, better than what we experience here. So it is possible to attain that if that's really your own desire, but it's tricky to get to that place. But the downside, I'll tell you the downside of being in a heaven, and by the way, just being in an inner region, you're going to think you're in heaven. But from what I know and research, there are what I call bespoke heavens, individual heavens. The downside is that you are there for a seeming eternity. So you make the most spiritual progress. You have that potential when you're on Earth in the physical. I write about 3 planets I incarnated on. This is my third, and it is by far the most challenging and difficult. So this is the place to make great spiritual progress now.
Mm-hmm. No, it's fascinating. So a lot of people, and I interview so many people in this area, as they say, God is a state of being and heaven is a state of being. So you have to ask for the answers. They're all within. So within, of course, you're connected to the universe. It's like you're a drop in the ocean, but you're the ocean also. And if that's the case, then judgment doesn't come into play. And I asked about judgment for a specific reason, because some people think, oh, if I do this, I'm good, then I'm going to get rewarded. But if I do this, I'm bad, I'm going to go to hell or whatever. And then a lot of people who are, you know, spiritual messengers, if you will, have said to me, no, if God is loving, including like Neil Donald Walsh, there's no judgment. It just is what it is. And you'll still continue on your journey through realization. How do you see it, Michael?
Well, I mean, the ultimate God, whatever you want to call that power, does not judge. But every action has a reaction.
Okay.
If you kill 20 people, you're going to have to suffer to that degree. I mean, if you basically eat 5,000 chickens, all of those chickens suffered because of that, you know, eating them. So you may not have to come back 5,000 times to reap that reward, but eventually you'll have to undergo that kind of suffering. So it's not so much that there's judgment, but it's cause and effect. Basically, I hope that helps.
Well, let me follow up on that. Let's say, okay, if you're, and I'm not trying to put you on the defensive, I'm just curious, and I think I'm trying to ask the questions that listeners would ask, and that is, okay, so you're a kid, and your mother feeds you a hamburger. You're not seeing a cow, you're just eating the hamburger. So does that keep you protected from having a karmic debt about eating an animal?
Yeah, as far as well, there are different levels, and there's levels of consciousness. Now, if you're a child being fed a hamburger, you know, that would be much more minor as opposed to knowing really about life and existence, and the higher form of consciousness that is killed, kind of the more suffering that's created in that if you feed off.
Okay.
So for me to go and eat a hamburger now would be completely different from
based on what you know now. Okay.
Yeah, based on what I know. And I
go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, and just, you know, I know a few friends who stopped being a vegetarian, and sort of like immediately really heavy stuff happened. And it may be because they had a teacher who was trying to get their attention.
Right.
But yeah, but everything's relative and graded according to consciousness. Sure.
Okay. I mean, the way I see it is where you are, you know, at some point, if you're ascending, at a certain point, you're going to drop meat and fish from your diet, but it's not a judgmental thing. It's like, as you move along, you know, it'll drop off at the time it's supposed to drop off based on your kind of learning curve or your path, if you will. Last question for you, Michael. With that in mind, can people, you talk about karmic and karmic debt, can people shift timelines and release karmic debt?
You mean actually
release karmic debt and all life contracts that they made previously to coming into this life?
Well, what I can say for sure is that you can dissolve karma or liquidate it by immersing yourself in the sound current in the Shabbat. That is either you pay off karma by going through what you were meant to go through in your destiny karma, or by doing a meditation on the sound current. Through that means your karmic debts can be dissolved.
Okay. All right. Michael Goddard, the book is A New Now. We've got a lot more to talk about, so I'm going to invite you back to talk about your book about past lives, which is called, tell me again.
In Search of Lost Lives.
In Search of Lost Lives. Thank you. I was scrolling and the book title was up above the fold, if you will. But I want to have you back. We'll talk about that and much more. So Michael Goddard, where can people find your book, A New Now, and learn more about you real quick?
Sure. They can learn and discover much more on my website, Goddart.com, spelled G-O-D for God, and Dart, D-A-R-T.com. My book page is More Bliss on Facebook, and I'm on Twitter at Michael Goddard, and LinkedIn as Michael Goddard.
Okay, fantastic job. Thank you, Michael. The book is terrific. This lays out a really great life plan and a lot of different practices that people can pick up on individually or collectively. Nice work. Thanks for being on Guys Radio.
Thank you so much. I loved discussing with you. Thank you.
Okay, Guys Radio interview portion of our show. We've got a very special return guest, Michael Goddard. He is a well-known author. The book we're going to talk about today is called In Search of Lost Lives, winner of the American Book Fest, Best Book Award, Living Now Book Award, Body, Mind, Spirit Book Award, National Indian Excellence Award. And he's been on our show before. We talked about his newest book called And New Now, Your Guide to Mastering Wisdom Daily, Achieving Equilibrium and Empowering Your Nobler Self, a guide to awakening and empowering your higher consciousness so you can live your very best life. And Michael's here to help. And he's gone through some very painful and very interesting past lives in his journey that he's going to share with us, and he shares in his book, and it's really fascinating stuff. So I want to have him back. Welcome back to Guys Radio, Michael Goddard. How you doing, Michael?
I'm doing great. It's so good to be back with you, Robert.
Okay.
I'm ready to dive deep.
Let's start at the beginning. So what triggered your recollection of your past lives?
Well, the actual trigger was I was observing the anniversary of my initiation onto my current path of meditation and spirituality. And I was just had this burning curiosity of whether I had met a master, a saint in a prior life, because I had been searching consciously since I had turned 11. And I had done a lot of intuitive work before that, in addition to meditating daily for at least 2.5 hours since I was initiated at the age of 21. So one of the things I do, I mean, I have a lot of intuition that comes through, but I'm also able to do what I call intuitive sussing, where I can ask questions and get answers. And that opens up where I just have automatic knowing, a direct perception of all kinds of details.
Okay.
So I asked whether I had and who I had known, and it came through loud and clear. I had met the saint in India 2 lives ago when I was part of the British Raj working as a British banker. And I had traveled to Agra ostensibly to see the Taj Mahal and the Agra Fort, but before that, the ball was set in motion.
Okay. So then how do they keep coming, the past lives, the recollections, and you're writing them down because you've got over 70 in this book here. How long did it take to get these? Did you get them through meditation? You met this teacher guide 2 lives ago. What happened from there to get to where we are right now, covering this book that I'm holding in my hands right here?
Yes. Well, initially, I just always had the desire since I was initiated to know what my last 4 lives were. So I very quickly got the last 4 lives, and they explained so much of who I was. And then I had also other curiosities of why had I started to design houses and draw elevations when I was 7? Why did I start acting when I was 7 years old this lifetime, and started writing and directing and acting in plays when I was 8? And that quickly came back related to my 3rd past life in my 4 lives ago. But then all of a sudden I was getting 7 lives back. I got a 5th life back. So initially it was all my curiosities to explain who I am today. And so it just kept growing. Initially, Robert, I thought I'd have 20 double-spaced pages in my journal that I could share with a few close friends. But after a couple months, I realized I could know whatever I wanted to about my past lives. And if there was something I couldn't know, I would know that. So I could know what I could know, and I could know what I could not access.
So are you still doing this now? Are you discovering more and more past lives?
I mean, I don't have any impetus to, because this whole story of my journey through creation is in search of lost lives. But occasionally, I might be curious about a person, how I knew them in a past life. Typically, I'll know. I mean, it's very easy to know, like if I meet somebody and we had to have sex in a prior life, I usually know immediately. Like, that can be embarrassing, actually.
That's hilarious. What is the purpose of people looking into and seeking their past lives? Is it to get more of a recognition of know their truth, kind of who they are, what they're all about, and where they are along the journey to realization, if you will?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that, because there are several reasons. First of all, as I was explaining, it can really clarify and illuminate who you are today, rather than going back and finding out who your great aunt was and what her hobbies were. It can explain all your idiosyncrasies and special characteristics. Also, if you were able to recover any number of past lives, you can begin to get a window into your journey through existence, because we are here to realize love, to realize our spiritual evolution. And also it creates a great deal of compassion and awe. Uh, and it really explains the creation, what existence is all about.
Okay. Does everybody experience the past lives and the same amount that you have? You discovered like over 4,100, and you wrote about 75 plus. Does everybody have that many who's around now, or has experienced that many different lives and that many different incarnations, in your opinion, as different humans on different planets, animals, etc.? Or are there new souls coming in? How does it all work?
Well, I can't speak specifically about other people because I only recovered my journey, but I'm glad you asked that. I mean, there may be people here who are very violent and aggressive, and this may be one of their earlier lives as a human. They may have been um, flesh-eating big cats in the past life. I recovered 71 human lives and 17 animal lives. And the animal lives are actually typically lives when I created such hurtful actions that I lost the opportunity of coming back as a human. Now, I recovered lives on 2 other planets. Earth by far is the hardest. So if you're looking at people who you might feel are spiritually evolved, this may be their second or third planet because they may have had an easier time on an earlier planet. But I recovered 4,137. I know that I have lived that many
Okay.
lives.
All
Um,
right. Let me ask you this, Michael. Because I've spoken to a lot of people who have studied past lives. I'm as a hypnotist, I have done that for myself and others. I've explored others' past lives, and my understanding has been that humans have been humans, and humans are humans and humans. And your take on it is that, well, you could have been a big flesh-eating animal. So my question is, is this just your particular perspective, or has every human had incarnations where they were animals, in your opinion, based on your
but
experience?
yeah, and based on teachings of what I consider fully realized human beings who have merged their consciousness in the highest consciousness, most people have been every single form of creation. I actually started out as a bush on my first planet. My first physical incarnation was as a plant form. So I've had millions of lives as insects, birds, salamanders, you name it. Uh, so most people have had non-human lives, but everything is possible in existence. Some person may have been living basically as a higher being in a higher realm, and this is their first life as a human being. So I don't want to rule out anything. I mean, this is why I encourage anyone to look into their adventure.
Okay.
But when you die and go to a higher place within, you can get a lot more information.
Let's talk about the highest power a little bit with along those same lines, Michael, because I think folks out there listening would have some of these questions, and that is, if God is all love, you describe a being that's kind of a lower being below God called Null. And he's kind of like the devil, if you will, kind of an accountant who keeps track of your karmic debt. So you're good, you do something good, you get a check mark. You do something bad, you get a check mark. And obviously everybody's got a lot more bad check marks, and so you have to keep coming back here until you can finally ultimately pass the bad marks with the good marks. That seems to me, just riffing here, to fly in the face of a God. My understanding of God through my own spiritual unfoldment journey is that God is not judging. God is experiencing itself through us, but doesn't say, right, wrong, whatever. We have to learn our lessons. We have to have our journey. But it seems like when you have this, and I want you to talk about Noel a little bit, this kind of debt accountant, debt collector, it seems like life is very harsh, where it's like of course, every single thing counts, but it seems like you're being judged, and it's like, okay, you're bad, or like that was good and this is bad and that was good. And a lot of people just don't know. It's the same thing with eating meat, if you will. If you were a big flesh eating cat, I mean, is that your fault? That's what big flesh eating cats do. They eat flesh. And a lot of people grow up and they don't, they're out in the woods and they eat animals because that's what they know. So how did you kind of come to terms with all that? I'm not saying, I'm not trying to challenge you. I'm just saying these are things that obviously
Oh,
people would think about, and I've thought about it, and I think some of our listeners would also. So what's your take on all of that?
Yeah, we raised a lot of really good points. And first of all, the ultimate consciousness is all loving and beyond language, beyond mind. And that creative power is experiencing itself through all of us all of the time. But the force or the entity you mentioned, the name is actually call, which stands for time
Call.
and death. Call.
Okay.
Yeah, and one of my sections writing about him is I call him the constant accountant.
Hmm.
And every action, it's just really kind of science, every action creates a reaction. So, I mean, we are the one like being on the planet with discrimination. I mean, if you come in as a flesh-eating cat, you're not going to be thinking about, is this right to do this? You're going to be operating on instinct. But we have that discrimination, and everything is taken into account. I mean, the reaction for somebody who is more spiritually evolved, who knows that every creature has an element of soul, is a spark or a drop of the ultimate ocean of being. For them to start eating meat is really different from someone who grows up in a culture, let's say in Alaska, where that's about the only thing you can eat. So basically, it's hard to realize, but there's really perfect justice and fairness in the world. But we are living, with the mind. Basically, who we are is not the mind. We are the soul. And there's so much out there about the soul. We could have a whole separate program about the mind and the soul. And in A New Now, I talk about your higher mind and your lower mind. And I really clarify that for people. So I don't want people to, to uptight or think at all that I'm being judgmental. Call is really operating under the grace of the Supreme Lord. Nobody can go back and merge back until all their debts are paid off. So most people are going to want to continue coming back and having all kinds of lives, all kinds of experience. But the tales, now this is, I think, quite fascinating, but what comes down through a whole different line of saints who didn't even know each other is that God wanted to kind of re-experience the creation. So he asked a huge, infinite number of souls to go down. And those who resisted, who didn't want to go down and take on a mind, take on a body, they basically were marked to go back. And that's why saints and masters come with a certain number of souls to initiate. For instance, Jesus had 12 disciples. When he left the world, you could follow his teachings as best you can, but you don't have that person-to-person contact with a living master.
Okay, my special guest, Michael Goddard, we're talking about his book, his amazing book, In Search of Lost Lives, and about his path and journey towards salvation from past lives, the different journeys and different incarnations. So tell us about a couple of significant lives here on Earth, and then also, if you could, talk about your lives off planet, if you will. Because you mentioned that, the reason I ask is you mentioned that Earth is the toughest place.
Yes, well, I recalled I focused on what I call notable lives. Think of each life as if you're in a movie with a script, and you may have a prominent role. Well, I recovered lives on two planets, Vizine and Jorlu. Those are the closest approximations in English. And the first off-planet life I recovered was I was just reading a sacred text, and all of a sudden, this life came through where I was a ruler of a good-sized country, and I had started a war, an unnecessary war that led to the death of over 260,000 men, women, and children. So that created a lot of karmic debt, all that death. That was a notable life.
So who did you come back after that? From that life, what was your next life?
That I don't have on the tip of my mind, but I do
Okay.
want to say, rather than coming back as an animal, I went into a state of reformation. That's what I call, as a neutral term for hell, for a seeming eternity, to basically have, be crushed and suffer, and learn to respect the sanctity of human life. Now, the majority of lives on Jorlu were mainly I was mainly a woman. And my spiritual evolution began when I was a mother of 6, and I was basically a stay-at-home mom. But I'm very grateful for all those lives as women, because that built a certain foundation for me. Because almost all my lives on earth have been as men. The idea of giving birth is really terrifying to me. But that's what I did a lot on this planet. But it developed empathy and sympathy and all those good feminine qualities that I was able to bring with me.
Let's go back to something you just mentioned, where you went to these, not more than once, you went to a hellish type of environment, and you talked about being crushed to death for what seemed like eternity until you kind of got it right, and then you could come back. And it feels very punitive. Is what's the purpose? Is of being that type of punishment? A lot of people are just ignorant. They don't know what they're doing. They're making mistakes. And I know you mentioned that it's all kind of relative and it's factored in, but okay, if you made some mistakes, and I have, I think, learned in my own knowing over the years that God's really not into punishing people. It's not really about that. If God is love, if everything is love, how could punishment of excruciating pain be part of that process of evolution, of your ascension?
Well, it's just that the creation operates under different rules. And in the ultimate, I mean, God is loving. We each have that spark of love within us, but we are here to initially exercise our free will. I mean, there are many people who end up in a heaven for a seeming eternity. People who do selfless good works, who suffer terrible privation. So they're sent to a take this anymore. And then I woke up and I was fine. I thought, oh, that was a bad dream. We're really in a dream state here, and we're here to try to wake up as best as we can. And that's why, if people ask me what you want people to do, I would love people not to do anything specifically except take responsibility for your spiritual evolution, because this is a God-given opportunity to be in a human life. Don't waste it. I mean, it's really, really tough being here. Everybody is suffering in one way or another. We're suffering because we're really separated from the higher force that you can go back to. That is our true home. And then all the suffering really you won't matter a bit.
Very interesting stuff. Michael Goddard. The name of the book is In Search of Lost Lives. Last question. What are you getting out of this life?
Well, I'm getting liberation. I really don't expect to come back. And you come back because of your attachments. So I stop myself often, and I'm just so grateful for the grace that I found the path I'm on, and I'm meditating, and I'm not coming back. Now, if someone is meant to come back, they're not going to experience that. People have different journeys, and we shouldn't judge. But it just I want to ask people to be as kind and generous and giving as you can be, and never judge, because you don't know the full story. We are reading a script with polished ease. The fact is, we don't know it's a script. All you can do is do your best and leave the rest, and give love as however you can.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly. It's just fascinating. Your journey's been fascinating. It's like it really brings forth a lot of different questions about how we live, what we've done in the past, now in the future. One more. Let's throw in a little bonus question here. How do you process this if time is not a continuum, as we, the linear time, and everything's happening at the same time? I would think that if you send divine God's white light to your higher self, that would be impacting all of your past, present, and future lifetimes, and therefore it would have a ripple effect to tap into all the other universal consciousness beings and universal consciousness itself that is out there, and you could contribute by kind of lighting everything up that way. What do you think of that?
Well, I think that'd be a good thing to do. But right now, we are bound by time. I mean, there are people, you know, you can say everything's happening simultaneously, but there are levels of reality, Robert. I mean, someone can say, well, World War I is happening the same as World War II. Well, I would ask them to prove it. You know, you have to go to a certain level. When you leave mind behind and you exist purely as soul, you are beyond time. So there is no time. But right now we are in the physical realm bound by time.
Got it. Fascinating stuff. Michael, great work. You're on a very unique mission. I applaud you for everything you're bringing forth, and hope you are protected along the way and you have your very best life, this one right now, and you're doing all this great work. So tell everybody out there how they can find out more about you and get your books, etc.
Right. Well, I invite everyone to discover more at my website, Goddard.com. Let me spell that as G-O-D for God and D-A-R-T for Dart. Think of a love dart, if you will, coming from God. So go to Goddard.com. There's a lot in free media. There are all kinds of interviews, about In Search of Lost Lives. There's plenty of excerpts. If you buy your books at Amazon, you can click through right to the book page. You can really order the books anywhere you want. And I'm on Facebook. The book page is More Bliss, which is the sequel to my second book, Bliss. If you have a burning question, you can email me, and that email is on the website.
Fantastic. Well, really interesting stuff. Keep going, Michael. And I feel you from reading the book, all those different lives and some of the pain you went through and some of those incarnations, just absolutely amazing. So thank you for sharing with us and coming back to Guys Radio. We'll have you come back again. We'll do another dive on this one. Okay.
Oh yeah, I love being on your show, Robert, and we could go on for hours. Quite
I know. Well, let's break it up. We'll do it again, but let's close it now and then we'll rock on. All right.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Michael. Please subscribe right here to Guys TV so we can continue to bring you the very best guests, content, and shows. Thanks for your support.